on, then. What? How about you? You're indeed brave tonight, but the fight is mine.
Oh, had enough, eh?
Look, you stupid...
Ranker
You've got the
ranks.
left. Yes, I have. Look!
Just a flesh wound.
What is going on? Welcome into Adjust the Ranks, brought to you by the Fantasy Football Universe, the FFU, the double FU, the FU times 2. I'm Jeremy Shulman at FF_Rebel. We have a special guest for you right here today to complete a Superflex 4-round tight end premium rookie mock draft. It'll be the last one of the offseason. But before we do that and introduce Rich right here, who's really the star of the show, we're going to do a couple of seconds of business here. First of all, Fantasy Football Universe, we have a Discord. We're just a couple of guys talking ball. It's me, Jesse, SC, Rich, Mike, all in there, just chatting. The link is actually dropped in this episode, so if you would like to join up, please do so. And then, of course, we have our May schedule here. We see Kendall was on last week. Rich is with us. We have Garrett Price next week, and then Joey Wright. We are transitioning from our rookie draft season to our dynasty startup season. I'm in a dynasty startup right now, but forget all of that. Let's talk about this. Rich at Dynasty Island, how are you doing, sir? Thank you for joining.
Yeah, very good. No, thank you ever so much for having me on. It's an honor, and really pleased to jump on with you.
Awesome. Really appreciate it. Please join the Discord. Jamie is in there. He is the man. The Discord is awesome. Chatting ball all the time. And of course, no, we're just going regular 0.5 tight end premium, pretty standard stuff. I know we're all in startups. I'm in a startup right now where the tight end premium is 0.75. It's already out of control with Brock Bowers and Trey McBride going early. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about rookies. So, Rich, I'm going to put you through it a little bit. I'm going to show you a few images and just have a look. These are pre-draft rankings. We had 11 rookie mock drafts before the actual NFL draft. So these are all of our rankings based on prospects. And we had JJ Zachariason on the show. We had Derek Brown, Pat Fitzmaurice, a bunch of other experts who are doing these mock drafts with us. So these are kind of an expert consensus, more or less, of where these guys would have gone. But then, of course, the NFL draft happens and kind of mucks everything up, of course. So let's just flash a few images on the screen. Let's look at round one first. Again, pre-NFL draft rankings. If you take a look at this, a little bit of chalk here, but I see a nasty name down there at 111. Anything kind of stand out to you here from this round one list, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Shedeur Sanders is pretty glaring. A little bit surprised to see how high Tyler Warren is. That's. I mean, I'm kind of a little bit of a Warren hater, shall we say? But yeah, to see him 6 ahead of Judkins, obviously Hunter at this point, I appreciate. We sort of weren't sure if he was a receiver or a corner, but yeah, to see him there is a little bit surprising with no Loveland even in the first round. Yeah,
absolutely agree with that. But yeah, you can kind of throw Shedeur out, plug Loveland in, and more or less, Burden and Egbuka, because of what happened with their landing spots, maybe were interesting. But we'll go to round 2 as well and just have a look here. There's Loveland at the 201. I'll read them through. We got Dart, Golden, Trey Harris, Jalen Milroe at the 205, Cam Scatterbo, Devin Neal, RJ Harvey, Dylan Sampson, Alec Minor at the 210, Jaden Higgins, and Jalen Royals at the 212. What are you thinking about this round 2 list, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Those last 3 wide receivers, I think, couldn't have had any more varied kind of NFL drafts, can't they? Obviously, Minor and Royals falling down into day 3, and then Jaden Higgins getting that fantastic draft capital, fantastic landing spot, and probably potentially bouncing up almost a whole round in rookie drafts.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely an early round 2 guy now. We'll see that in just a few minutes, I think. His teammate, Jalen Knoll here, college teammate and professional teammate at 301. We got Arroyo, Ali Gordon, not anymore, Mason Taylor, Harold Fannin, Damian Martinez. Then you have Isaiah Bond, not in the league currently, Bashal Tootin, Jack Besh, DJ Giddens, Restrepo, and Terrence Ferguson. How about round 3 here, pre-draft?
Yeah, it's amazing looking at these running backs, isn't it? In terms of it shows once we get out of those kind of round 1, round 2 backs, it's kind of throw it against the wall and see what sticks, isn't it? We weren't sure who was going to get good draft capital, who's going to get good landing spots. And as you said, Ollie Gordon, Damian Martinez, they were some of the fallers, and Bashal Tutin's obviously a bit of a riser given his draft capital and landing spot.
Yep, totally love that. I'm far too overexposed to Big Shell Tootin. But then, of course, Jack Besh is interesting too. I don't think we're sure what to do with him, but he tends to go late round 2, early round 3 post-draft. And then we have round 4, which is almost totally changed. Some of these names aren't even on the draft boards anymore. We got Brashard Smith, Savion Williams, Jordan James, Quinn Ewers, Kyle Williams, massive riser, right? Will Howard, Torrey Horton, Gunnar Helm, Tez Johnson, Jaden Blue landed in Dallas. Taj Brooks, another good landing spot for him in Cincy. And Tyler Shough made it in at the 412. And now that man is borderline first-round value, depending on what drafts you're in.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Shough, that's I'd love to get him for the 412 in a lot of my leagues, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I don't know what I'm doing here with technology. If I could put our faces in that graphic on the board at the same time, we'd be in business. A couple of quick comments before we go. Let's see. Dart can even go at the 111. I've seen Dart. I've taken Dart as early as the 109. You're betting on the fact that he's going to be able to do it properly and hold down that job, but we don't know. Restrep, no. Let's do this before we fire up this draft. Rich, how about you? Is there one particular player that comes to mind? Maybe you have a riser and a faller who just for you pre-process felt like, they were a sure thing and, you were definitely going to get them in the first or second round and then they totally fell off the board. And or vice versa, you felt like this guy, he wasn't even in your periphery, and then all of a sudden he shoots up for you.
Yeah, so one faller for me was Jalen Royals. I was big on him in the pre-draft process. Performed really well in my rookie model. Liked him on tape. Thought he was a natural separator. As soon as he fell to day 3, that's almost a cardinal sin for wide receivers. I know we've had Puka and Amara St. Brown, and people will still keep chasing them, but the track record of day 3 wide receivers is not great. So he was a massive faller for me. And then the biggest riser is probably Kaleb Johnson. I was really low on him in the pre-draft process. I saw the talent, I saw the upside, but I was just like, I'm not convinced on him as a pure receiver. And he is so reliant on being in a zone-heavy scheme. I don't think he's going to fit in the NFL. And then he lands with a team that, the Steelers were, I think, 3rd in the league in percentage of zone attempts rushing the ball. I think it was 74% last year. Crazy. Perfect. Like you couldn't have created a better situation. He gets to pair with a back in Jalen Warren who can handle the pass pro and, a lot of the receiving work. And I think Kaleb Johnson's going to be, a really interesting back. So yeah, he was a massive riser for me.
Yep. I love that. And of course, if all else fails, draft an Arthur Smith running back, especially one who's going to plug into the Najee Harris role and potentially run for 3.8 yards a carry instead of 3.3 yards a carry, or whatever the hell Najee was doing last year. Absolutely ridiculous. But no, I love those as well. Before we get into the draft, we do have a question. Mr. Magic says, rank these guys in redraft. We'll do this very quickly. We got Henry with the new contract, Achane, Bucky, and JT deviating from rookies for a second. How do you feel about these guys, Rich?
Henry would be my one. And then the other 3 I've all got in a similar tier, so could go anyway. I'd probably lean Achane, JT, Bucky, just because I think JT and Bucky have probably got the more question marks about situation, role, coaching staff, given the changes in both those offenses, whereas I'm fairly comfortable with Achane.
Yeah, fair. I hear that. I'm a little wary about Achane only because it's not a coaching inconsistency yet, but I think there's a lot of concern about Mike McDaniel potentially being out the door. So Achane for me is a little concerning. He's got the explosiveness, but I want Bucky JT are right there for me. I'm going to take Achane 4th, but I get it completely. That's enough of that. Let's get into this, Rich. And first, we're going to do, as you do in a rookie a rookie draft when you're in your dynasty league and you're on the clock, Sure, we want to talk about these guys in a vacuum because we want to compare them to each other. However, we never draft in a vacuum. I'm not saying this should change your strategy much, if at all. However, we're going to potentially try to change your strategy a little bit by spinning the wheel here and giving you a little bit of context to your rookie draft here. So the biggest question of the episode, Rich, do you choose to spin first or will you defer?
Let me spin first. Let's go.
Nice. Excellent. Deferrals were very popular early on. The spin first crowd has come through of the late. So you are part of the majority and you are a win now ball club. Remind us where you're drafting from in the mock.
That's a good question. I think I'm 105. Yeah, 105.
105. So interesting, if you are in a win now build at the 105, you have an opportunity to leverage your pick and get somebody who can contribute right away. You're not worried about the Emeka Egbukas of the world where you see the talent, but you don't necessarily see the path to production immediately. The 105 seems like a really nice place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. 105 is one of my favorite points in the draft this year. I think it's the point at which you can kind of control the draft in terms of, I think there's 5 elite prospects. So I'm happy getting any one of those 5, but it's also a point at which you can trade up, you can trade back, you can trade out of the pick. Like I think you can control a lot from the 105 in this year's rookie drafts.
Absolutely. I love it. And we'll see exactly how you choose to operate in just a minute here. But first, I'm going to spin the wheel because why not? I'm drafting from the 112. So maybe I've won it all. Apparently I have because I am also win now. I will do my best to choose players who are at least going to help me produce. So again, you get into this situation where at the 112, I expect Luther Burden should be available. I expect Egbuka might be available. Do I choose someone like a Jackson Dart if he falls because of that value? One of the tight ends if they fall because of that value. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. But we are both win now squads for the moment. Rich, as we go in, again, you mentioned those 5 elite prospects, so we're going to fire up the draft in just a second, but I wonder if you wouldn't mind kind of spoiling it for us a little bit and sharing kind of a couple of those names. Obviously, we got Genty, probably Hunter. Who else you got on your list? Yeah,
so I've got Genty as my 101. He's in a tier of his own. I've then got a second tier of Cam Ward, Ted McMillan, Amarian Hampton as my... So I grade prospects on a star rating just so that it makes me easier to compare kind of cross draft class and stuff like that. Those are my 3 4-star prospects. And then I've got Travis Hunter at 5, but depending on how risky you want to be, what kind of situation roster's in, I could argue taking him 101. So yeah, those are my 5 elite prospects.
Yep, I love it. Travis Hunter, we saw on that list we looked at pre-draft, he was in the second round, back in February, and then inching up and became a top 4 lock over the last 3-4 weeks leading up to the draft. And then, of course, he goes to the Jags. The Jags are saying all the right things about utilizing him as a wide receiver. We know they have a need. We know Trevor Lawrence should be better than he's been. New coaching staff, the works. And he doesn't have to do it all himself with Brian Thomas there as well. So I love the fact that, Travis Hunter has inched all the way up to that top 5 lock. And hopefully we get the usage we want out of him. But let's jump into this draft. Once again, if I can click things quickly, and I can, this is a Superflex tight end premium 4-round rookie mock draft that we're going to fire up right now. I will notify the guys here. We do have Mace here at the 101, noted IDP expert, was a little concerned about drafting here. Non-IDP, he said in another chat, where is Abdul Carter? Sorry, Mace, but we got to go with the offensive guys here. So we expect Genty here. And then the other guys that you mentioned. Let's talk a little bit about this, Rich, before your pick. Let's say, as I've seen in some rookie drafts, that Cam Ward kind of falls. He's at the 105. How comfortable are you with that pick, considering your win now and considering, how you view him as a prospect?
Yeah, I think incredibly comfortable. I have a very keen adage that I would always draft for talent, trade for need. I don't believe you should necessarily change who you're drafting given the situation. I think you should be able to trade for that. I do think there's a difference where if you are competitive or rebuilding. But for me, Cam Ward, I don't think he's got top 5 fantasy QB upside. But I think for me, he's the kind of guy that I expect to be a bit like Dak Prescott in terms of he's a low-end QB1, high-end QB2, year in, year out. You can kind of set your clock to it. So, yeah, I'm really excited if I get an opportunity to draft him anywhere in the top 5. And in most leagues, I'd be comfortable taking 102.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I know we're a little shell shocked from Caleb Williams didn't have the season that we wanted. But if you listened to us last season, we were bemoaning Shane Waldron, in the offseason before he got fired mid-season. It didn't make any sense to me. But Caleb now seems set up for success. You look at Cam Ward's situation, it's close. It's close to what Caleb was dealing with last year, especially that offensive line fortified. You have decent weapons in Calvin Ridley, some of the rookies that they brought over. So do you think that he's able to put up, a mid-range QB2 season in year one, or are those expectations a little lofty for you?
I think there's the potential to do so. I think a little bit depends on how he's going to run. I don't think he's going to be, Jaden Daniels or Lamar Jackson, but I think he's going to be around sort of the Patrick Mahomes, useful on third down, some carries in and around the goal line, that kind of thing, which will give him enough of a rushing production to be in that sort of RB2 mix.
Absolutely. And you are up at the 105 with about 30 seconds left, and your guy's on the board. If you are taking TET and tell us a little bit about why.
Yeah, I just think he's a really solid, safe prospect, which is not something we often associate with wide receivers. But this is a guy that I think can separate all 3 levels. I think he's a natural kind of separator in that element. I've got a few question marks about his fit within this offense. I think you can see it immediately. I think he's going to be Bryce Young's best friend. And I think that, where does Bryce Young excel? It's highly accurate to the outside and intermediate areas of the field and creating outside of structure. Well, that's exactly where TEP McMillan thrives. So, yeah, I'm really excited about what he could be. I don't think he's a guy that we're going to see as a fantasy wide receiver 1 over the next 5 years, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're sitting back in, 5 years' time and we've had 3 or 4 top 36 seasons from him. I think he's just going to be a consistent, solid wide receiver 2-3 for fantasy.
Yep, I agree with that. The one thing I'll add, and I'll ask you, do you think he has Mike Evans touchdown production in his range of outcomes where he can just, 50-50 guys in the red zone and potentially see double-digit touchdowns in his near future?
I think it's difficult because touchdowns are just notoriously not sticky. So it's difficult to sit here and say that. I think, we've seen guys like Julio Jones who you're like, yeah, he should be a beast in the red zone, just for whatever reason could never quite get it done. So, I think that depends on Bryce Young more than perhaps TEP McMillan, because I think if this offense is going to, fire and Bryce Young's producing 30+ touchdown seasons, then TEP McMillan should be in and around kind of 8, 9, 10 a season. But if Bryce Young's going to struggle and then we need to find a new quarterback next year, it's going to be difficult for him to put up big touchdown numbers. But, I think he's got the short area quickness. He's got the foot speed to create separation. So there's no reason he shouldn't have decent touchdown numbers. Yeah.
And, Adam Thielen won't die. That man is always useful around the end zone. You got big bodies in Jatavian Sanders. And Hunter Renfrow is on this roster in Carolina. So who knows what they're doing? But TEP McMillan rather, is set for a ton of volume, regardless if he gets that touchdown volume. Let's look at the first round here. So obviously Genty, then you had Travis Hunter, Marion Hampton, Cam Ward, and TEP McMillan. So those 5 elite guys you mentioned at the top, Rich. Then we have Travion Henderson, Judkins, Caleb Johnson, RJ Harvey. So 4 RBs in a row. Emeka Egbuka at the 110 and Tyler Warren at the 111. I'm facing an interesting decision here, and I don't think there's any guys. This ADP is actually pretty solid. So for me, it's Loveland, Dart, or Golden. Those are my 3 guys. I'm not a huge Luther Burden guy. I'd prefer to wait a slightly longer until the early to mid second. I'll just take the guy I'm always taking in Colston Loveland. I think he belongs there, right there with Tyler Warren. You saw he was taken at the 10th pick of the actual NFL draft, goes to a great situation. So let's start, Rich, by talking about these two tight ends. Who do you prefer between Tyler Warren and Loveland? And what do you think we should expect from them early on?
Yeah, I'm a Loveland believer. I've got Loveland a full tier ahead of Warren. I think he just walks in as a prototypical move tight end, and I think he's going to be phenomenal in the NFL. I think the question is, quite a lot of mouths to feed in Chicago, but I think Ben Johnson's going to be able to get the best out of him and hopefully use some creative usage. Tyler Warren, I'm really scared for. I think it's a really weird landing spot in terms of he's at his best in the slot. I'm ready to pick when you want me to, by the way.
Go for it.
I think he's at his best in the slot, but the problem is that the Colts have got a really good slot receiver in Josh Downs. I think he's reliant on the quarterback, but we've got quarterbacks that are both very inaccurate. So if he was in an offense that he could be a highly accurate quarterback, get the ball out quick, and allow him to be that yards after the catch monster, I'd be interested. I also have concerns over him as a blocking tight end. So for me, I just have too many concerns to have him even close to Loveland.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's a shame, really, for me, because I think Shane Steichen had some potential, but just saddled with the quarterback situation. I mean, long before Steichen, the quarterback situation in Indianapolis has been atrocious. Since Luck just decided to retire, it's been a disaster there in Indy at QB. The same remains true. It's still a disaster. I think Daniel Jones is the quarterback sooner rather than later here, sadly. But yeah. I agree with you. Loveland over Warren, but it's still really close because Warren's good. I know guys like you, I assume, Rich, are concerned about his much later breakout and that late stage production. Of course, Loveland, I don't even think he's 21 yet, right? He's still 20 years old. So there's a big difference in age. And of course, that younger production, regardless of COVID and all these other things, I don't think age matters as much as it should. At the same time, we want to see these guys produce as soon as possible, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the stat that I've recycled a lot this year is that Harold Fannin produced 1,800 total yards in his age 20 season. Tyler Warren produced 160 yards in his age 20 season. It's ridiculous. Okay, he was a former, quarterback and all this kind of stuff, and he was playing behind, NFL stud Theo Johnson. But I've got real concerns.
Yeah, I hear that completely. Mike of the Dynasty Sog says, respect Mitchell Evans. I will never. I don't know about Rich, but we're not going to address that yet. Maybe at the end. We got Jalen Knoll a little bit early. We'll talk about that in a minute. Jesse is our resident Bayshell Tootin lover. I am also overexposed. It may partially be Jesse's fault. And then I was going to take Shough at the 207. So interesting there. We'll talk about that in a second. First, why not? No, I'm going to take the guy I always end up taking in the later rounds, even though we're not talking necessarily about a premium. But let's run through round 2 here for you, Rich. And then why don't we talk a little bit about some of these names? We got Jackson Dart at the 201, Luther Burden, Trey Harris, Matthew Golden, Jaden Higgins, and teammate Jalen Noel. Then we have Cam Scatabo, Kyle Williams, Bayshell Tootin, Jack Besh, Jalen Milrow at the 211, and I went with Elijah Arroyo at the 212, doubling up on tight end. What are you thinking here about some of these names? I know Kyle Williams is buried in these rankings, but he's interesting. Jack Besh always tends to sneak into the back end. We got Milrow. Who do you like? Who do you hate here in the second round?
I mean, let's talk about Milrow. Like, if you could say to me, a player in this draft has a chance of being the first overall pick in startups, to me, Jalen Milrow is the only player in this draft that has that in his range of outcomes. His ceiling is insane. His floor is out of the league in 2 years. Like, it's truly a wild range of outcomes. So yeah, I think a late second round pick to take a flyer on that type of prospect. The contract situation with Sam Darnold lines up. The draft capital is pretty good. Like, yeah, there's a lot to like there, and I think it's well worth the flyer. So yeah, he's been a consistent target of mine, should we say?
Nice. How do you feel about these running backs here? We'll add Jaden Blue into the mix. Actually, no, we won't. Let's just talk about, we got those interesting running backs there. We got our top 6 in the first round, and then Scattaboo and Tootin, I like to kind of lump in there as the last running backs I really want to take. How do you feel about kind of the RJ Harvey, Scattaboo, Tootin level of guy? And are you happy enough to walk away with those guys where they went in this draft?
I mean, it depends what you define by happy, I guess. Like, do I expect them to be a fantasy contributor? No. Do I think they're a worthy dart throw? Yes, absolutely. Sure. Like those top 6 guys, I think you can say those are guys that are going to produce for me in 2025 and feel comfortable with that in terms of the role and what they're going to be. Anyone outside of those top 6, it's lottery ticket. Yeah, okay. I like the idea of Cam Scatterbo in that Giants offense. I think he could be, an intriguing option. His ability in the passing game is, really, really impressive and quite honestly underrated. He could be fantastic. But equally, Tyron Tracy showed out last year that he's a talented back, and Cam Scatterbo could be, this year's Blake Corum, quite frankly. Bashal Tootin, in an ideal world, Tank Bigsby had a tough rookie year, struggled at times last year, couldn't really get on the field when it was positive matchups, only seemed to play when it was against some fantastic defenses. Travis Etienne sounds like he's kind of on his way out. Like, yes, there's a world where Tootin could be great, but equally, this is a later round draft pick. This is a guy that is a great athlete, but the production's never really been there. So I think there's a lot of projection there. And also I think Tank Bigsby, to me, is a more talented and better back. So I think holding out too much hope on Tootin being a contributor in 2025, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of lottery ticket. And I think that's it. It's, for me, it's those top 6. Those are guys I can count on production. The rest of them, it's toss of a coin.
Yeah, fair. Then do you lump Tootin maybe in the class of a Jaden Blue, similarly to just your expectations for them in the league?
Yeah, so probably not. I'd have Tootin ahead of that. So I've got in my, where are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got Cam Scatterbo's in my 6th tier of players. I've got Tootin is the only back in my 7th tier. In my 8th tier, I've got Woody Marks, Dylan Sampson, Jaquez Hunter, and then Etienne, Giddens are all in that next tier. So Jaden Blue, I wouldn't draft him in my top 50 for me. I think some people are getting excited about landing spot, but I'm going to rely on talent, my rookie model, my film evaluation, and draft capital. And I don't think he warrants that higher of a draft pick for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, and it's also Dallas, right? Dallas doesn't know what the hell they're doing. I think they luck out on defense. Offense is a different story in the draft. You picked in the 3rd round here, Harold Fannin. Let's look at this 2nd or even 3rd tier of tight end here with Arroyo, Taylor, Ferguson, and Fannin. These are the 4 guys who tend to go off the board in every rookie draft that I've been in, and usually not too many more, if any more. How do you feel about these 4 tight ends and your ranking of them, and who might have the longest career in the NFL?
Yeah, I love all 4 of them. I'm coming in out of almost every one of my drafts with at least one of them. To give you an idea, Harold Fannin's my 14th overall player in Titan Premium Leagues. Like, I'm really high on him. This is a guy that completely broke my rookie model. He was 100th percentile in 3 of the key metrics that I look at. Nice. His production is absolutely wild. I love Terrence Ferguson, kind of slightly more theoretical, shall we say, in terms of the athlete and the situation, but love what he could be. Mason Taylor, I'm a Jets fan. I've been talking for 2 months leading up to the drafts that I dream of the Jets drafting him. So for them to grab him, I was very excited. Nice. And yeah, Elijah Arroyo, I think, is again a really interesting athlete, movable piece, and should see some decent volume. So yeah, all 4 of those guys I really like, and I think you might not get production year 1, but they're guys that I want to be adding onto my roster at that sort of costs.
Yeah, and I did see that you did call not only Mason Taylor, but also the Jets' 1st round pick as well, right? And you almost had the 3rd round pick. So very, very good stuff from you. And yeah, I think Taylor, all of these guys, really, I'm happy to grab one or even two of them as I have in multiple drafts. Arroyo and Ferguson are my preferred options, but like you said, you really can't go wrong at cost, especially in tight end premium leagues. If we look at the third round, you see those tight ends. You see Tyler Shough at the 303. We'll talk about him in a minute. Jaden Blue at 304. Fannin at 305. 306 was Sampson. Shedeur Sanders at 307. Jalen Royals at 308. Dylan Gabriel at 309. We'll see who starts for Cleveland. It's going to be Joe Flacco. Devin Neal at 310. Alec Eominor at 311. And Jarquez Hunter at 312. Let's focus on the quarterbacks here in the third round. We have two potential starters here. I don't think it's far-fetched to project Shough as the number one guy out of the gate in week one. Just because that room it was awful, but it is worse now with the Carr retirement. Let's talk about Shough a little bit, and then maybe the Cleveland situation as well.
Yeah, I think, yes, Tyler Shough's probably going to be a starter, but my question is that how often are we going to be starting him as in a super flex league? I get that, I'm the guy that preaches quarterback value in super flex, and we should draft them as often and as frequently as possible. But I feel like the best case scenario for Tyler Shough is like QB 24 on the season. I just don't see the upside. I'm not convinced that he's a long-term starter. I mean, the track record of round two quarterbacks is pretty horrendous outside of Jalen Hurts in the last 10 years. I think if you exclude Jalen Hurts, it's basically 6 absolute massive busts going back to Derek Carr is the most recent second round quarterback that was competent. So I don't have high hopes. For me, at this point in the draft, it's great value. I fully get it at this point. I just don't think there's much upside or much hope that we can expect from a player like Shough.
Yeah, that's fair. And then the Cleveland situation, how do you think that breaks down?
Who knows? Is the true answer. I agree with you. I think Flacco starts. I think that we'll see Flacco until the season's done, which will probably be like week 5, week 6, something like that. Yeah. I think both Sanders and Gabriel will probably get a chance to start this year. I think that they're going to try and give them both an opportunity. I think for me, Sanders is the better player, better value, and more likely chance to start. I think I wrote up in my rookie guide, Dylan Gabriel's like the perfect NFL backup. And I think that's what the Browns basically drafted him as. This is our long-term backup quarterback. We don't have to start yet, but he's the backup. And Shedeur Sanders is like he's a complete coin flip, isn't he? I think as I said about Jalen Milroe earlier, Sanders has a chance to be the starter in Cleveland. He could equally be, if he turns out to be a problem or a distraction, he could be cut within the next 4 or 5 months, and anything in between, quite frankly. So again, worth the dart throw at this point. I think once you get into the 3rd, 4th round of rookie drafts, I'm almost exclusively attacking what I class as volume-based positions out of my top 24. So I'm attacking running back and quarterback, and I'm almost not bothering with day 3 picks at wide receiver or indeed tight end.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just so hard for those guys to hit. I did a study in the offseason. I've been talking about it with a lot of people. Just basically, I think just because of the volume of players who were selected and where they're typically selected, for example, running back by the NFL, and we saw it again in this draft cycle, they're just typically pushed further down the board to later rounds. So I think running back, I went from the 5th round on. Wide receiver, I went full day 2, the 4th round, and then QB and tight end, I went from round 3. But all of those guys from that point and beyond, the hit rate is 2% in terms of an elite asset. The hit rate for like a usable asset who you can stash and sometimes play on your dynasty roster is 8%. So it's just, and we don't know, right? This is what JJ Zachariason came on the show and talked about and did his own study about, was the fact that, we are no good at choosing those guys. So it's not only that those guys rarely hit, we just don't know who is going to hit. So I totally agree with you. You're just throwing darts at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I did a similar study. It's probably getting a bit old now, but yeah, 2.8% chance that a day 3
Yep.
wide receiver produces a top 24 fantasy season.
Crazy.
Like, yeah, okay, everyone can keep talking about Puka and Amon-Ra St. Brown, but outside of them, it's an absolute lorry load of draft misses and duds.
Absolutely. Let's quickly go through all of these round 4 likely draft misses and duds here. We got Ty Felton at the 401, Pat Bryan at the 402. He's a darling. Almost slid him into the 3rd round. Didn't do it. Rashard Smith at the 403. People love him. We got Will Howard, Woody Marks, Trevor Etienne, Ollie Gordon, and DJ Giddens. Then Torrey Horton, a personal favorite of mine to throw a dart on. Taj Brooks lands in a nice spot. And then you got Tesla, Don't Call Me Musk, Isaac Tesla, and then Xavier Restrepo, who is looking like the best receiver in Tennessee's camp. Of course, it was like day 1 that we got that report. I don't know if we can trust anything, but who knows? At least he is back with his college QB. Anybody you love here in the 4th round, Rich?
I think it's the running backs, isn't it? I'm trying to spread as many darts across these and across my drafts as I can. Really intrigued by the guys that have got potential to be one injury away. Someone like Woody Marks or Taj Brooks. They in theory could be the 2 in that backfield. If there's a Joe Mixon or a Chase Brown injury, could they see volume? Could they see a role? And for me, with a lot of these round 3, round 4 picks, I'm not drafting them expecting them to be a fantasy usable option for me for the next 5 years. What I'm drafting them for is the hope that I can spin them into a future 2nd round pick. Yes. So for me, I'm drafting Woody Marks thinking if Joe Mixon gets injured at some point this year, that could happen. Woody Marks is the starting running back for a high-powered offense. Is someone going to give me a 2nd round pick for him in 2026? In which case, I've turned a 4th round pick into a 2nd round pick, and that's basically how I'm approaching rookie drafts once I get outside of my top 24 round players.
Yes, sir. That is how you win. Follow Rich's advice because it is surely excellent. Let's talk about a few of these comments. Fannin at 307. Yep. A little too slow. I think a lot of these guys should be and rightly are going around the early 3rd round, 55%. So talking about tight ends, how you feel about Gadsden, because he obviously had that insane year last year in terms of production. He's not necessarily, doesn't seem as athletic, at least when you watch him on tape. I'm not sure what he ran, but it couldn't have been fast. What do you think about him, adding him to this list of these 4 tight ends here?
Yeah, I really like Gadsden as a dart throw. If we're taking dart throws at tight end, it needs to be on guys that put up production and are athletic. And I think he's not a guy that's going to walk in and be productive year 1 potentially. But if you've got a 5th or a 6th round, or indeed as this guy says, spend some fab on him. Stick him on the taxi squad for a year. This is a guy that's a former wide receiver. We know he's got the ball skills. We know he's got the talent in terms of the route running ability. I joked earlier about Harold Fannin basically breaking my rookie tight end model. Gadsden was very much there in terms of 98th percentile in terms of 2 metrics that I look at, and 95th percentile in another. So he put up some ridiculous numbers in college, and there is talent. I think he is going to be purely a move tight end. I think his blocking is questionable at best, shall we say. But as dart throws go, personally, I'd rather lean quarterback or running back, just because, as I said, I like taking those volume-based positions, but can't fault any flaws on a guy that's hyper-productive like Gadsden.
Excellent. Love it. A couple of things as we're looking at the board post-draft here. First of all, how do you feel about your draft and who you came away with? Do you feel like you got your guys? Do you feel like you got value? Did you leave some on the board? How's it looking for you?
Yeah, I'm very happy. Ted McWilliams, my 3rd overall player, to get him at the 105. Very happy with that. I think it's really pleasing. Jaden Higgins, I think he's going to potentially end up being this rookie season my most drafted player. Yes. I'd take him at the 112. I think he's interesting prospect, really great draft capital, really great landing spot. Yeah. So to get him in the mid seconds, I feel like that's great value, but also someone that could see the field and produce immediately. Then we talked about Harold Fannin, huge fan, can't argue the production. And then Woody Marks is just a dart throw. But for me to get 3 of my top 14 players in the Titan Premium League in the first 3 rounds, that feels pretty good. And then a dart throw in Woody Marks.
Excellent. I'm going to run through mine quickly. As I do that, have a look at the board, Rich, and be prepared to give us another drafter or 2 who you just like the value of what they were able to grab off the board. At the 112, I took Loveland at first. Then I took Elijah Arroyo in the second round, Jarquez Hunter and Xavier Restrepo. Loveland, of course, I love the idea of where he landed. We're going to need to see a couple of things move and shake around, but we know Ben Johnson's there for the long term. Kaleb Williams, I am a believer. So I think Loveland, if he doesn't produce right away, at the very worst case, Cole Kmet is gone at the end of the year. I saw somebody tweet today that Cole Kmet to the Chiefs in next offseason is going to feed families. And that's a pretty good point. You got Elijah Arroyo in the second. He's a similar situation. We need to wait a year on him. Most likely, we'll see what happens with Fant here in the lead up to the season and throughout the season. But Arroyo should be eating by year 2. You got Jarquez Hunter, who you referenced earlier, just super explosive, something that they're missing in that Rams backfield, even though Kyron Williams has been completely and utterly indestructible back there. Jarquez Hunter adds a different element. And then you have Restrepo here, but he's at least paired with his college QB. I'm happy to grab him when Bryant and Horton are off the board, as they should be before the 412. So that was my draft. We talked about ours. Let's talk about 1 or 2 other guys in here. Rich, whose draft did you really like?
I really like the 102. I think, and this is me doing a show and podcast with Tom, who's obviously a best ball guy, and always swinging for upside, chasing that kind of 100th percentile outcome. If you're looking for the 2 guys that have potentially got the high ceilings outside of Jalen Milroe, Travis Hunter, Luther Burden. Like Travis Hunter, it's incredibly risky. There's a chance that he's never going to be more than kind of a 60-70% snap share guy, and he's difficult to start in your fantasy lineup because of that. But there's also, guy's a phenomenal talent. He's a 95th percentile prospect in my model, and that's despite him never training or practicing with the wide receiver group in college. So there's incredible talent there. His ball skills are rare. His foot speed is ridiculous. So to get him at the 102 is great. As I said, I could eagerly argue taking him at the 101. And then Luther Burden, like, if I had a magic ball and could look into the future, it would be what is Luther Burden, because he is rare ability with the ball in his hands. He is a phenomenal athlete. I think he's an amazing football player, but I don't know if he has a role in the NFL. Like, you could tell me Ben Johnson creates ways to get the ball in his hands. He's an absolute dynamite playmaker and produces insane volumes for fantasy. You could equally tell me that this is a guy that they struggle to get on the field, doesn't have a natural position, struggles with the more physical elements of the game, can't kind of separate or kind of release, because I think his release package is questionable, and ends up playing special teams. Like, the range of outcomes is wild, but let's shoot for the moon. And then you throw in Terrence Ferguson, who I said earlier, I love the athlete. I love the kind of theoretical upside of that Tyler Higbee replacement, someone that I think the Rams are going to use a decent amount of 12 personnel this year, could get on the field as a rookie. Those first three picks are about as high upside as you can get. Yeah, maybe we should have thrown Jalen Milroe in just for the true upside foursome. But yeah, like, swing for the fences, and if one of those hits their upside, you're happy with that rookie draft. So yeah, I really love what the 102 did.
Excellent. I love that as well. For me, it's the 106 all the way through the 109. I love all of the running backs that at value they were able to grab. At the 106, Buck Wild, he's got Travion Henderson. I absolutely love him on my New England Patriots. So we're rivals there. Rich, you as a Jet fan, and myself from New York as a Patriots fan. That's a story for another podcast. But we got Travion Henderson here at the 106. Love him there. That's where he belongs in my estimation, and he's absolutely going to explode in New England. provided he gets enough touches, which, I think he will. Ramondre, we've seen what he can't do, and often what he can't do is hold on to the football. We got Jalen Knoll in the 206. I like his long-term outlook. We'll see if he can get it on the field right away, but Tank Dell's health, unfortunately, is probably going to hinder him for more than just this season. We'll see how that shakes out, but I like him in Houston. Then, of course, Dylan Sampson, one of my highest running backs pre-process. He landed in the worst possible spot because now he's behind Quinshon Judkins. I do think he's better than Jerome Ford. He should earn some work right away, but I just think Judkins is really going to outmuscle him in Cleveland, and that line isn't getting any better from the elite status it was just a year or two ago. And then we have Trevor Etienne in Carolina. Again, another dart throw. We have too many backs over there, but I do not mind that. I'll also jump over to the 108 with from Huncho with Kaleb Johnson, Kyle Williams, Jalen Royals with the dart throw at 308. Why not in Kansas City? That whole room, including Travis Kelce, is just in flux, whether it's legal issues or age and completely falling off the cliff, dating, pop stars or whatever, your billion-dollar podcast. Who knows what they're doing in Kansas City? But Royals, if he can be on the field and catch Pat Mahomes' eye, could be a value there. And then DJ Giddens, I just think there's opportunity there to catch the football out of the backfield. It just depends if there's going to be a quarterback there to throw it to him. So I like those two specifically. That was our draft. So, Rich, I am going to kind of put you on the spot here. Let's see if I can. Yeah. All right. Technology, not my strong suit, but we got it back here. So as kind of a final question, I know we talked a little bit about it before in terms of risers and fallers, but give us kind of one name. Who is your favorite guy throughout the process? You did all the pre-work. You put together your guide, which you're going to tell everybody about in a second. Who, if you have not gotten it, you're going to go out and get because it's fantastic. And then, of course, we had the NFL draft. We had landing spots. We know where everybody is now. Who is the one guy who you're like, I love everything about?
I think it's Harold Fannin. As I said, incredible prospect in terms of my rookie model. Really enjoyed the film. I think he's not a natural mover, which to me appeals because I think, you look at someone like Justin Jefferson, and I'm not comparing the two, but part of the reason Justin Jefferson creates separation in the NFL is because he's got these obscenely long legs and he's not a natural mover. He doesn't move like other players, which is why he can create separation. Now, Fannin looks unathletic and looks weird in terms of his gait and how he moves, but the guy's so productive and produced just historic numbers and was able to consistently separate. Okay, it was lesser competition, but I think that will translate. And I think the value you're able to get, as I said, I was high on him in the pre-draft process. Okay, the draft capital wasn't quite where I was dreaming, but love the landing spot. I think it's a team that's going to use two tight ends. We're already seeing potential of him being used out of the backfield in the slot. And I think that, as I said, he's my 14th overall player in tight end premium. And the fact that you can get him in third rounds is fantastic. So I'm very excited about him.
I love that. Do you think that Njoku will move out of the way quickly due to age, or do you think this is more of a long game with Fannin?
I don't see that they necessarily need to be two people that can't be on the same field. Like, as I said, Stefanski's shown in the past that he's happy using two tight ends. I think Njoku is an impressive blocker. He can line up in line, and he's improved so much in that element of the game that the Browns don't have a great receiving core. I'm comfortable with Fannin potentially being that sort of movable piece, can line up out the slot. I mean, you look at Njoku's contract situation, it's a bit weird because the Browns are a bit weird in terms of how they had to approach contracts because of the Deshaun Watson, but his contract, technically, he's in the final year. I mean, it's a bit mad because they've got a $24 million cap hit next year with him not being on the roster. So the expectation is that they'd probably extend him at some point this year. But it could be that, as I said, he is a free agent at the end of this year. Fannin could, if he produces, step in and take over. But I think they could be both productive and both on the field at the same time.
Nice. Awesome. Rich, really appreciate you joining the show. We're going to post this out and put all of the information to your rookie guide, et cetera, and everything that you're doing. For anyone who would be watching the show, which is probably no one who doesn't know where, Rich, your stuff can be found and everything you're doing, why don't you take a second and tell them?
Yeah, you find all of my work at the Fantasy Sanctuary. So it's at the FF Sanctuary on Twitter and on YouTube, pumping out as many shows as we can at the moment. We've got a members section where you get access to my survival kit, which has got all my ranks, my trade calculators, everything like that. And then, silver tier and above, get a free copy of the rookie guide, which is 90 film-based player evaluations, rookie model, rookie rankings, my riskometer, and all sorts of crazy stuff in there as well.
Listen, man, we appreciate your service. That is a bear, I know. So tackling that amount of players to that level of detail is amazing. So we appreciate you, and you should appreciate it as well by going to purchase that. We are the Fantasy Football Universe. We have a Discord. Please join it. It is in the comments here, or just DM us. And of course, our guest list for the rest of the month. Garrett Price will be on next week. Joey right after that, and plenty more guests as good, but not better than Rich, will be on the show in future months as well, mocking to your heart's desire. This is the last rookie mock draft that we're going to do for probably the entire offseason. So we'll get into dynasty startups. We're going to be doing some Scott Fish stuff in June, and then beyond, of course, we get into redraft finally as summer approaches. So that's us. We are Adjust the Ranks, brought to you by Fantasy Football Universe. Thank you so much for joining us. So for this guy, I'm this guy. We are Adjust the Ranks, and we will see you guys next time.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.